Welcome to this fourth and hopefully final episode of Getting Started with Zusi 3. So far, we have learned how to configure Zusi, toured the cab, learned about common trackside signs and signals, and surveyed the various train protection systems. Today, we will be focusing on reading the timetable and conducting passenger operations. So, at long last, we're finally going to talk about how to actually drive your train. The railway systems in most countries require you to know the track that you're driving in quite a bit of detail, but in Germany, all the information you need to successfully drive it is provided in the form of signs, signals, and the timetable. Now, you will absolutely be a better driver if you do know your route, but it's not actually required. As proof of that, later in this video, we're going to discuss footage of me driving Route 10922 on a route I had never set foot on prior to the recording. But first, the timetable. The timetable is a detailed plan of how you are expected to service the stations along your route, as well as information on the track features that you'll need to navigate. Some timetables are quite easy to interpret, while others are more complex. This discussion will be centered around the electronic timetable, also known as the ebula. Looking at the screen, let's move around the border in a clockwise direction. Starting at the top left, you have your route number. This phrase means that your timetable is valid. Here is the date of our travel. Here is the current simulation time. Here is our next stop, although I'm not sure why this says Schledern-Sieg and not Au-Sieg. These are measurements of power, but I'm not sure specifically how they relate to the journey, so if you know, please leave a comment below. This is a time measurement of how you're doing compared to your schedule. A negative number means you're ahead of schedule, while a positive number means you're behind. Now, onto the timetable itself. The diamond indicates where in the table we currently are, based on the kilometer post. The track speed for the current section is listed on the left, and a description of any track features is in the center. The first column of times shows our arrival times into platforms, and the second column shows our departure times. If there is only a departure time, then we are to pass by the station without stopping. Currently, we are at kilometer post 68.0 per the timetable. The diamond will not move until we reach our next timetable feature at 67.4, so it is more accurate to say that the front of our train is somewhere between kilometer post 68 and 67.4. Note that on this timetable, the kilometer posts are descending. The timetable is not 100% accurate down to the meter, and in reality, the 68.0 kilometer post sign is just ahead, so don't expect this to function like a GPS. Our current feature shows that we are at a BK sig, and there is a yen symbol. BK sig means a block signal that is controlled by a signaler, as opposed to an automatic block signal. Earlier, we learned that mainline tracks are divided into blocks. This increases the capacity of the main lines, and it prevents trains from running into each other. The timetable tells us that we should see a block signal at or around 68.0. The yen sign indicates an end-of-point zone for the upcoming station. Within the station, there may be multiple sets of points that you would cross over while changing between tracks. Once you have crossed through the yen symbol, then you know that there are no more of these junctions. It is important to know when this has happened as you depart a station, because it signifies the point at which you can accelerate to line speed. At 67.4, we will reach Etzbach HP. Etzbach is the name of the station, and HP is the type of station. HP is an abbreviation for a halt, which is a platform for passenger trains on the main line that is not protected by station signals. So rather than expecting a formal station with entrance and exit signals, we'll be passing by a platform that is just situated along the main line. We won't be stopping because we don't have an arrival time. At 65.7, we have an E-sig, which is an entrance signal. This is a signal controlled by the signaler and will provide us with instructions on how to proceed into the next platform, in this case, Ausig. We may encounter a stop signal if the station tracks are occupied, or be given speed restrictions. Any speed restrictions we receive are valid until we stop at the platform. After departing the platform, there is an ASIG, or exit signal, at 64.6. This will allow us to proceed back onto the main line and may have its own speed restriction. Because we stopped at the platform, we can immediately accelerate to this new speed. We do not have to wait until our train passes the signal like we would with a normal speed sign. If we were just passing through and not stopping at the platform, the speed restrictions we received from the entrance signal would be valid until our entire train had passed the exit signal, at which point we would use that signal's restrictions. In the case where we were passing through and did not receive a speed restriction, we would need to be aware of the mainline speed restriction of 80 kilometers per hour at post 65.3 with a resumption to 110 at 64.4. But since we did stop at the station, we need to note that at 64.4 we encounter our yen sign. Once our entire train has passed the junction in this section, we can accelerate to the new line speed of 110, but we also need to be aware of the line speed decrease to 100 just up the track at 61.5. Next on the timetable is a block signal at 62.2 and another yen sign. Honestly, I have no idea why there is a yen sign here, as there were no junctions in this section of the route. I suspect this may be an error in the timetable, but if you're aware of the significance of this symbol in this location, please comment below. At 61.5, we have a decrease in the line speed to 100. At 60.1, we will pass by UST, Rossbach, HST. The station name is Rossbach. The UST indicates that there is a track crossover protected by signals. The HST indicates that there is a halt, which is identical to the HP station we first passed, but it's called HST because it is co-located within this crossover. While the Zusi manual has a few of these station types listed, I will also leave a Wikipedia link in the description that has a lot more of them for you to reference. The term crossover is a little misleading in this case, as it appears that we are simply transitioning from double track to single track before we pass through an upcoming tunnel. You can see this visually represented on the timetable. On the right side of the kilometer posts, there is a thin black line running parallel to a thick black line. That thick black line represents our track, and the thin black line represents the parallel track to our left. Just beyond the platform, you can see the thin black line joins the thick black line, representing the crossover. There is also a yen sign at this point, indicating the track junction. Again, I think the double yen sign is likely an issue with the timetable, but if you know of its significance, please comment below. Now, on to the next screen of the timetable. At 59.4, you can see that we'll be entering a tunnel and we'll be exiting at 59.1. We have an entry signal at 58.9 for Schladern, but this signal has a notation of E60. Normally, when we receive a signal showing HP2, or slow, we must proceed at no more than 40 kilometers per hour. This E60 tells us that for the entry signal, HP2 will allow us to proceed at 60 instead. Likewise, the A60 on our exit signal will allow us to proceed at 60 kph if we receive HP2. After we depart the station and pass the halt at 55.1, we will see an automatic block signal, as opposed to a signaler-controlled block signal at 54.9. This is abbreviated SPK. Okay, that should be all you need to know about timetables to drive this route. If you end up on another route with other nomenclature that we haven't discussed, please refer to the Zusi manual or the internet. Now let's move on to driving the train. We will be starting on the main line just prior to a block signal and approaching our first station. To get the train moving, we need to advance the power controller. The power controller has 3 positions: off, forward, and braking. From the off position, you can hold the 8 key to advance it to the forward position, or the 2 key to advance it to the braking position. Once in one of these 2 positions, you'll need to tap the 8 or 2 key to move it forwards and backwards. To reset the controller to the off position, press the 5 key. I find that accelerating and braking at 40% to 60% is generally sufficient and keeps my acceleration number to something that I like to think would be comfortable for my passengers. The exception to this is when I'm trying to stay within a PZB braking curve, at which point I may decelerate more aggressively. One thing that I struggled with early on is decelerating into stations. I've settled on trying to be going no faster than 100 when I am 1 kilometer out from the platform. On this line, that's pretty easy to do because the line speeds aren't very high. On other lines where you're frequently traveling at the full 160 kilometers per hour, it requires some forethought into when you're going to begin your braking. Okay, let's get started. Okay, here's our first timetable feature. You can see that there is a junction right in front of our train from a little siding off to our right. And that is why we have that little yen symbol there. The yen symbol doesn't really apply to us because we're already on the main line, but if we had been coming off that siding, that yen symbol would let us know that that's where the end of the junction zone is, and we could accelerate after that. And just after the level crossing in front of us, you can see the halt platforms on the left and the right. We have not encountered an entrance signal. This is not a formal station. This is just a platform alongside the main line. So that's a representation of what a halt looks like. So probably one of the next things that I'm personally going to start looking into is what the correct procedure is for passing through a station as far as sounding your horn. You'll see that I don't sound my horn going through any of these because I don't know what I'm supposed to do, but I do believe that there is a particular procedure for doing that. Okay, I've reached line speed, so I've backed off on the power. I've got just a very small amount to keep us going at this speed, and at the same time, I need to be aware that my next stop is just over 2 kilometers ahead. So I'm at 110, so once I hit about a kilometer out, I want to start slowing down if I haven't already received some speed restrictions at that point. And here's our first speed restriction. I will need to acknowledge this under PZB rules and begin my deceleration. You'll notice it won't be nearly as aggressive as if you're going 160 and need to get down to 60 like we were in our PZB video. So this is kind of the start of the approach into our station. Okay, this is our entrance signal. It is displaying an HP0 proceed aspect, but also an HP1 proceed aspect, and also a VR0 warning me that I will need to stop soon, so I need to begin preparing for that. Okay, a couple things about stopping at the platform. This is a long platform, and I don't see a whole lot of signs regarding where to halt. If you look in the cheat window up above there, you can see that um, it says stop at Aussieg in 30 meters. So technically, I probably should have pulled up another 30 meters, but the passenger operation will still work where I am now. So don't lose any sleep over missing your stop by a few meters. Now that I'm stopped, if you may have noticed that my door buttons were flashing. I believe it's once you get under 3 or 4 kilometers per hour, and at that point you can choose the doors to open. So I've selected the right doors by pressing the home key, and you can see my right door open indicator is lit. So as soon as I finish coming to a complete stop, those doors will open. The screen on my left will show the door status page, and you'll see that they are open. Okay, we are loading passengers, and if you look at the top left of the screen, there's a little red pedestrian symbol right next to my frames per second counter. When that guy is there, it indicates that people are getting on and off the train, that there's traffic next to your train, and um, you should continue to wait. Once that icon disappears, it means that everyone has boarded that is going to board, and that it is time for you to go. So I would leave the doors open until that little guy disappears. Once he disappears, I'll close the doors by pressing the home key again. You'll see the the closed door button flashing. Once the doors close, the door light will turn solid, and the screen on the left will show the doors are closed, and then it'll revert to display. Okay, we did get into the station a little bit early. We don't actually depart until 3:43 p.m. Uh, and that little pedestrian symbol isn't going to disappear until it's time for our departure. So I'm just going to skip ahead to that so you don't have to sit here and watch the game for another 2 minutes. Okay, our exit signal is in front of us, and it is showing HP1 for proceed. There's no new speed restriction on there, so we can continue along at our previous speed restriction, which was 80. However, as you can see, I stopped my speed at 20 because I am currently under restrictive monitoring from PZB because of that station stop and the red magnet or the 500 hertz magnet. So as soon as as soon as we're out of the influence of the 500 hertz magnet, I can release us from PZB and we can accelerate. Okay, so we're accelerating to 80. However, we are now back on the main line and we have a speed increase up to 110 right in front of us. And you can see the junction right in front of us. And that is represented also by the yen sign on the timetable. So as of right now, I can increase to 80. And as soon as my entire train has passed that junction and that speed sign, I can then increase my speed to 110. Okay, I'm up to line speed. And anytime you're driving in Zusi, you need to be thinking, okay, what's next? What's next? What's next? In my case, I have a speed reduction coming up, but it's only 10 kilometers per hour. And then I have another 10 kilometer per hour reduction. But my next station isn't for another 5 kilometers or so, so I have a little bit of time to prepare for that. Okay, if you recall when we were discussing the timetable, we were briefly talking about the crossover. This is the crossover right here. You can see the double track that we've been on is now going down to a single track. So there is a yen symbol on our timetable that tells us about the um, point zone here. It doesn't apply to us because we're already proceeding on the main line at mainline speed. Right up around the corner, we're going to encounter the tunnel, which is also marked on our timetable. And I do sound the horn going into the tunnel just because I learned to do that in the tutorial. Okay, here is our entrance signal to our next station. And this is the one on the timetable that was notated with an E60. So if we had received VR2 instead of VR0, we could prepare to slow to 60, but we're going to be stopping at this station, so we do have a VR0 aspect here to warn us that we will have a stop signal up ahead, um, I'm assuming at the platform. Okay, as you can see, we performed our passenger stop, accelerated out of the station, had a proceed indication on the exit signal, and just passed the end of points. That's really all there is to it. Driving the train is pretty easy once you understand what all the signals mean, how to manage your train protection systems, and understand what some of the lights and gizmos in the cab mean. I hope you found this series of tutorials to be useful, and I hope I haven't led you astray too much. Like I said in the beginning, I am definitely no expert and still learning the different features of this simulator myself. You should now at least have the information to get started with the sim and have some fun driving trains. Use the Zusi manual, the forums, and other internet resources to fill in the gaps of your understanding and expand out to other signaling systems, other routes, and other trains. All right, have fun.